Hi everybody and welcome to the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey and I'm joined as always by Sam Proof. Today we're talking all about Restream for podcasters and video show hosts. So we're going to be checking out how you can use that particular piece of software to really bring your message to the world. But first, Sam, welcome. I understand there's some cute Avalanche news. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I basically called this last Friday. We've been pushing our way to the 4,000 hours of watch time for it feels like months now. I haven't even counted when we started this. But if you've been following our progress, somewhere around Wednesday night, we because YouTube's analytics only update on that earn tab like every 6 hours or something, we got across the threshold, and I logged in and was greeted with a big message that said I could apply to the YouTube Partner Program. So I very quickly and very tired at like midnight did that. And then in the morning woke up to find out that the AdSense account that I had used was like I had somehow created a duplicate and they wouldn't accept that. So I had to go in and figure out how to close that and link the real one. And then when I got through all of that, it was like, congratulations, it'll take us about a month to review this. And I was like, oh, I felt so good. And then at the same time, I was like, I don't want to wait anymore. And then Friday morning, I woke up and it said, congratulations, you've been accepted to the YouTube Partner Program. I was like, what the?
Nice.
So Cute Avalanche is officially a YouTube partner. If you have any questions about all of that and what that does, just let us know. Maybe I will do a whole a stream about that in the future. Once I have a minute to go over a lot of it. I know most of it.
And I think it's really interesting, and maybe we can unpack that in a future show. But
yeah.
I mean, Cute Avalanche has been streaming almost around the clock. So to get that, I'm just, and I hate to be all about myself, but as someone who produces maybe an hour and 10 minutes worth of content each week, I don't know how I will ever get to that number. But I mean, congratulations for doing that.
Thank you.
And again, if you want to check that out, head over to youtube.com /@cuteavalanche. Yeah, so that's really, really exciting. I know that's been a goal of yours for some time now. So that's awesome. Hi
and now I have
CG.
no idea what my goals are. Hey, CG.
Hi,
how you
CG.
doing?
It's funny. I was saying on Twitter, and we'll get to that in a second. But I was saying on Twitter yesterday, my goals are pretty nebulous at the moment. But I don't think the ad that they served up about becoming a massage therapist is probably the way I want to go.
Right.
But we are talking about Restream, and we'll talk about Restream in a second. But there's just been so much stuff going on this week. I just want to touch on some of it ever so briefly. Twitter has been falling apart. I mean, it has been a little bit more stable from a technical point of view later in the week, but certainly Sunday, Monday, it was a nightmare. And I actually started, looking more at Mastodon and Blue Sky and Hive Social, and then towards the end of the week, Meta released Threads. So that's their sort of Instagram tag on. I think it's way too early to even know what to make of it yet, and I must admit, and maybe this is just me, but there's something about it certainly on my Android device that I just don't enjoy the experience of it. It seems to jump around and scroll around quite a lot. It reminds me of early Plurk. I don't know if anyone remembers Plurk.
Oh God, Plurk was the worst.
It was almost seizure-inducing when it first started.
No,
like there
Plurk
were just things
was
flashing and jumping everywhere.
but it also was like a horizontal thing, and like I don't remember if they had a phone experience. I just did everything on the browser back then, and it was just absolute nightmare to navigate that thing. I had just gotten my Blue Sky invite code at like Monday or something, and was like super gung-ho about that because I was like, great, I like Jack, I think I can get behind this. There's a couple good people I know already using Blue Sky. And then Threads dropped, and I was like, well, I gotta check it out because I do tech stuff, so obviously I have to try it. And I think as an iPhone user, I love it. I think the onboarding experience of being to like auto follow and find all of those people that you already have on Instagram was just brilliant. And it's like, all of these other things, Mastodon and Hive and stuff, it's just been so hard to like re-find anyone because everyone's
Mm.
different. All the screen names, like why people can't you keep the same screen name on the same, like,
And I
and
guess especially like in the Mastodon experience,
that's the
it's no
worst.
longer just a screen name; it's a screen name plus a server. So you've got to figure
Yeah,
out where they signed up in the first place.
yeah,
I don't know, like it's interesting, and I know that you're probably a little bit more excited about Threads than I am.
mhm.
Again, I'm hearing a lot of accessibility concerns about Threads. I'm hearing a lot of privacy and security things about
Yeah, I mean,
Facebook
it's meta.
and Threads. I guess people are finding that, if they opt into the Threads experience, they can't
This
really delete it unless they want to
right.
also delete their Instagram account. So just be a little bit
Yes.
careful about that. But again, like it's so early in the piece. I guess we'll just wait and see what's coming. But I guess for me, like the experience of all these sort of compounding text-based platforms just made me think, I don't know that social is the answer. Like, I genuinely don't think it is. Like, I need to just go off and make some more videos and update my website and like
Sure.
occasionally interact with people on these platforms. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's early days. But if you are using Threads, I'd love to hear in the chat what you think about that. That would
Yeah.
be
And
very, very interesting.
you can find me at threads.net/@samproof.
Nice. And I'm at John Lacey as well. I guess that's the nice thing about it being linked to Instagram is
It's the
that
same.
it's already got your username. So
Yeah.
that's
And you
usually the
can,
thing that I tell everybody is like run out and make sure your personal
yeah,
name or brand name or whatever is reserved, but it's not such an
but it
issue in that
is.
regard.
If you've done one, you've by default done the other. And I believe you can click through from an Instagram to someone's thread, or I think there's some kind of like thing that at least shows up on your Instagram that implies you've enabled threads so people can see that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So I guess like today we're talking about Restream for podcasters and live shows, and I know there's a little bit of sensitivity, especially in the audio podcasting community, about whether video shows are podcasts. We're not going to dwell on that today too much. We're just going to show you the technology and you can decide if you want to use it. The thing I
Yeah.
always like to tell people is that if you don't have a boss or a client telling you what you have to do, you can make that choice for yourself and just be
Right.
okay with it. I think a lot of the times, we often don't feel like we're making as much progress as we would like, and that's when you become so susceptible to the guru saying you must do this, you must do that, and it's like you just need to do what works for you. So we're not going to dwell on that, but what we are going to start with, I guess, and maybe Sam, you can speak to this a little bit. So we're going to talk about Restream. Restream is a company and it's a product, but there are also sort of the Restream and the Restream Studio versions of this. So the Restream Studio is that browser-based experience, whereas Restream itself does a few other things. Maybe Sam, if you want to talk to us about those other things.
Sure. So, yeah, the one really nice thing about Restream is it's just out of the box, easy to use, sets you up for live streaming. It has all of these like built-in scenes and it's browser based, so there's no software that needs to be downloaded. And if you're doing a podcast or talk show type format, anything where you might have a co-host or a guest or something, they have a built-in guest invite system. So you don't have to worry about adding plugins or any of that kind of stuff that you would do with something like OBS or high-end software that for some reason doesn't do that kind of thing natively. So it really does make a very simple solution to having multiple people on screen at one time, and organizing them, having them talk, and then pushing that out to a live stream. And with Restream, of course, if you've got one of the pro plans, you can go to an endless amount of multicasting solutions. For man, that is a jumble of a sentence. You can push out to a bunch of different platforms, depending on how much you're willing to put into your Restream package price. Good lord.
Absolutely, and I guess like we've done an entire show on sort of multicasting, and
Hmm.
I guess that's the thing. You need to decide what your goals are, and which destinations you want to be on. And I guess especially in terms of that YouTube watch hour dilemma, like I
Sure.
guess that's kind of where I am at the moment. I'm only going live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and I'm trying to push more and more people to YouTube. So I guess that's something to consider. Essentially, you can go live, and I think I've got a graphic of this, so maybe I can bring that up while I talk about it. But essentially, you can go. Let's. This is actually how the new version of Restream looks, and it literally just
Yeah.
updated this week. So it's been a big week for new changes. But essentially, over here, you can tell it what you want to do. So you can stream with the Restream Studio, which is that in-browser experience. You can connect via a third-party tool like OBS. There are a whole bunch of others, but OBS is the one that we like on this show. You can actually in fact, I think this screenshot might be better. Yeah, so you can upload and stream a video file, you can schedule an event, and you can also record video and audio to different places. So you don't actually need Restream Studio as such to go live, but it is quite a nice way, especially for beginners, but especially bringing people into a browser-based experience where they don't need to worry about too many other things. There are other integrations, so and other settings as well. One of the ones that I quite like is the chat relay. So if you if you are broadcasting to a platform that accepts that isn't sort of read-only in terms of the chat, and LinkedIn is one that is only read-only, so that doesn't really apply. But essentially, if I was going out on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch. Basically, any platform where this is switched on and it accepts the input, it will sort of show the comments from other services in the same place.
Yeah,
so that way, if people are talking, they can see what other people are saying.
Yeah, people on Twitch will see what people on YouTube have said and vice versa and things like that. I believe Trovo and DLive also have that integration, if I remember correctly, but I'm not sure.
Sure. Okay, so I guess let's talk about scheduling events. So if you are intending on actually going live, and that's an option, you can actually record offline as well. But let's have a look at this. So again, I've got so many screenshots in here, and I can't really tell what any of them are. But essentially, from here, you can go to this is sort of the main interface when you log into Restream. It'll give you different options. So if you want to actually go in and schedule an event, you can click on that button there. This will actually bring up not that one just yet. These are slightly out of order because, of course, they are. Okay, there we go. So again, this gives you the option. So do you want to use that browser-based experience, which is Restream Studio? Do you want to use the encoder to come from somewhere like OBS? Or do you actually want to schedule a pre-recorded video? So that's an option there. You click on the one that you want, and you'll be brought to another screen. So here we do the title, the description, the date and time. And again, this will be reflected in your time zone. And if you're not seeing this in your time zone, just go to the settings and make sure you update that. And you can also add a thumbnail in there as well. And then essentially, once your event is ready to go, if you are using the studio experience, you can click on that Enter Studio button there, and you'll be good to go.
So really quick, I want to address this. Hey, Jeff, what's going on? I think, did we both hit that at the same time, or is it just not working when I hit it? There we go.
There we go.
Horsehead says, looks similar to StreamYard. So yes, Restream and StreamYard are both very similar software or apps, if you will. And we have actually done a head-to-head review of them in our past podcast. So you can find that to find the sort of nuanced differences. I think, I think the sort of broad strokes of the biggest differences are ultimately Restream, if you had, an endless, money's no option, you want the biggest plan, will allow you to go out to the most multi-cast places and platforms. And StreamYard has a little more customization to these scenes that are built in. So I think that's the biggest difference.
And it's interesting, and I think honestly, my experience of this is Restream is probably a lot more popular than StreamYard, and we have done shows. It's
been around the longest too. Yeah,
we will do more of them in the future. I guess the reason why I started with Restream was that you could actually get more channels in terms of the multi-streaming for a slightly cheaper price actually per month.
Yeah. The
Um,
mid-tier is a better deal, I
so I
believe.
think the equivalent with StreamYard was only 2 destinations, but I mean, funnily enough, I only go to 2 destinations myself these days anyway, so
Right.
it's a fairly moot point. And I guess to Sam's point, you do actually have a lot more customization in terms of the visual look and feel.
Yeah.
Which again can be a good thing, can introduce some complexity. So depending on how new you are to streaming, how much you want to go down that path, that's kind of
Yeah.
up to you.
And I will say this as a difference, since we were just talking about multicasting, if you are doing a podcast or a show live stream that has guests on, has a co-host on, and hitting, excuse me, hitting more platforms is a goal that you have, and there's some pros and cons to that. Restream has a pairing link so that it's John's stream, but he throws a pairing link to me, and now we can be on 3 of our own platforms combined. So now we're on 6 platforms. And if you go to the higher plans, you can do even more. I was on, gosh, I can't remember the name of that show, Speedify, which is a streaming service. I was on their podcast, and they were like, "Hey, if you want, here's our pairing link," and they have like the best thing. So I was able to add like a dozen different things. We went out to a total of 25 different platforms, and they were like, "That's the most we've ever done." So there is that. StreamYard does not have an equivalent service to the pairing link.
And I should say too that I have seen people, especially on LinkedIn, just give out their pairing
Mm-hmm.
link to the entire
Sure.
world, and I don't know that I would recommend that, but it's
Yeah,
fascinating that
that
you
seems
can
excessive.
literally keep doing that. So yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's an important consideration, I think. And hello to Claire.
Hey, yeah. Hey, Claire. Yeah, that's a whole show worth of discussion whether or not you want to hit that many platforms or double down on just one. There's a lot to be said there. And whether or not Restream or StreamYard is the better service, go check out our past podcast on that. We have opinions.
And I know this is going to sound weird and probably unnecessarily complicated, but I do know some people that use StreamYard to produce the show and then take the signal from StreamYard and use Restream to put it in more places. So
Really?
there are all kinds of
Okay.
ways you can combine these. But again,
Sure.
I guess for beginners, like, don't complicate it too much.
Yeah.
I must say, Claire, I love all the emojis, but they don't translate in Restream. So
Yeah, they
I
won't show
love
up on
seeing them in the
screen.
chat. But thank you for joining us. I know
Yeah.
you tend to lurk out there, so we appreciate that. And thank you, Horsehead and CG, for joining us as well. So I actually didn't say this at the top of the show, but we are going out live to a whole bunch of different locations. So if you are lurking, just say hi. We promise we won't require too much audience participation unless you want to, but certainly keep that in mind. So I guess, if you don't actually want to go live in Restream, you can actually use it for a recording only experience. The thing I don't love about this particular thing is that one thing that we used to do on this show was that we would do our show live, and then
Mhm.
afterwards we would record a promo for the next week's show, and we actually physically needed to leave a particular window and go to a different place, and then I'd have to send
Right.
Sam a link. I kind of wish it was all together, but it isn't, and I guess that's just something we need to deal with. But again,
Yeah, it oddly has you're either doing a live stream or a recording, and even though these dashboards look completely the same,
mm.
they act differently.
Yes. And I guess to give you, so again, if we go back to this, what would you like to do? There's obviously that record video and audio option down the bottom.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it's pretty much exactly the same, except you don't have the option to start or end a stream. And you won't have chat, obviously, but everything
Right.
else is pretty much the same. So
Yeah.
again, it's a little thing, and we don't actually record those promos so much these days anymore.
No.
So I'm kind of over it, but it is it is just something that's worth keeping in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so This is the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey and I'm joined as always by Sam Proof. Today we're talking all about Restream and Restream Studio and how you might like to incorporate it into your workflow as a podcaster or a live streamer. Sam, I guess, one of the nice things about Restream Studio is that we do have the ability to bring in our different assets and change colors and stuff. And I think in the way that I sort of alluded to earlier, it's the interface has changed a little bit just in the last week. So I sort of brought in a whole bunch of screenshots this morning, but hopefully this will be one of them. So we'll come back to that one in a second. But this one,
this is good.
Essentially, a lot of these options that are here on the far right, you'll see design, captions, QR codes, and chat. They were sort of actually positioned at the top of this dialog box. And I must admit, the one thing that I've literally just discovered in the last few seconds is that if I click on the design button, for example, and it'll actually take that dialog box off the screen. So if you don't need any of those there, you can hide them away, but chances are you will. So I guess in terms of our options, in terms of branding, we do have this little thing just above the design logo on the screen there, which it just looks like a black square because it is just a black square for me at the moment. But this is actually where the brand folders are kept. So if you have a different look and feel to your show or a number of different shows, you can actually set these up individually. But you can select a primary color. You can upload a logo. And they sort of recommend a square format of 512 pixels by 512. We've got the overlays. So these are things that we can put on the screen over the top of what we're actually looking at. And in fact, this thing that I'm showing you right now is an overlay. It is worth noting too that you can actually incorporate some transparency into your overlays. So let's hit this one, for example. Let's say, okay, are you watching live? If so, put hashtag team live in the chat, or if you're watching later on, put hashtag team replay. And that's just an overlay, but it's an overlay that is mostly transparent. So as long as you save this as a PNG or a GIF image and make sure that you keep that transparency, that will help you in that regard as well. We go back to this image. So we've got the video clips there as well. If you've got a pre-recorded video, you can certainly play that, and we will certainly do that in this show at some point today. And it's a little bit outside of the scope of this screenshot, but if you scroll down, we do have a number of different background options that we can work with as well. So, and some of those, I'm sort of tempted. I'll press this one for a second.
Yeah,
just to give you a sense of what this might look like in a different way. And I play around with this every couple of weeks because I'm yet to find something that I'm truly in love with. But at the moment, we're sort of working with this one. And these are just, graphics that you can sort of work with in any kind of graphics software. So Photoshop, Illustrator, Canva, whatever you like. The only thing to keep in mind is that they are actually sort of the right dimensions for your video.
Yeah, well, while we're on, I think this topic, I think kind of falls in line with, you can add a few other things. I don't know if you have a screenshot for this, but there's like an ad source that pops up, like a few other options that lets you present like like share your, share your screen's actually its own button, but you can upload PDF presentations or add an additional camera from your computer or an RTMP source. They also have a variety of background music that will loop seamlessly for you and is copyright free, royalty free for you to use. And
I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think the music is in Restream. I think that's a StreamYard feature.
No, they literally, I think they may have just added this because
I'm not seeing
hit the plus. Hit the plus or press the A button, and then it's the background music thing.
I totally see what you mean.
They totally sent an email out, and I was like, is that brand new, or did they just update it? So yeah, maybe it is brand new, but it's there now.
I'm literally. I literally just took a screenshot of that, so I will put that on the screen in a second. So,
Mhm.
again, like I think it's so this is what Sam's alluding
There it
to. So
is.
there is a plus
We both
sign.
clicked it.
Yes, of course we did.
You do it. Okay.
Okay, so you can add these other things to your stream. So you can add an additional camera. You can add a presentation. So if you've got a PowerPoint, you can do that as well. You can upload a video from your Restream storage. You can do a local video from your local computer, which I probably wouldn't recommend. But there you
Yeah,
go.
that
You can
sounds.
do an RTM source, which is a little bit more complicated. But essentially, if you wanted to bring in another streaming video from somewhere else, you could. And you can bring in background music. I must admit, and again, I'd love to hear from you in the chat if you love this or if you hate this, but I really don't enjoy a lot of background music in streams because one of two things happens. Either, and you've got to make sure the volumes are relatively good on these too. But one thing I do find is that sometimes I will be so in touch with the rhythm of the music that I'll be like, I didn't hear a word that person
Yeah.
said
Hmm.
even when the volumes are separated. So again, like I would think about how you might use those things, but certainly
Yeah.
the other thing, and again, this will be a little weird because this is from last week's show, but just in terms of showing you this, and as we've said, this interface has changed ever so slightly. But down the bottom, you can see that you've got the ability to turn on or off your camera and your microphone.
Yeah.
You've got the ability to just share your screen. You've got that option to actually invite another person to your stream. So that'll give you a URL that you can send them directly, and they can join you. That plus sign were all these features that
Mhm.
Sam sort of showed us a moment ago with all those extra things that we can add in there. And there is also the settings cog. So let's actually talk about. I was going to do this a little bit later, but I think while we're in the midst of this, we might as well just keep going.
Sure.
So basically, and again, I think this might be the one I want. No, I don't think that is. We'll get to that in a second. That's later on. I've got so many screenshots here, and I didn't name them very well, and it's learn from my mistakes, people.
Yeah. It would be nice if when you hovered on it, it kind of popped up a little so you could see
Yeah,
which one it was.
sure.
That is.
But
Hmm.
anyway, if you go, in fact, I have a weird feeling that I've probably taken these screenshots and not uploaded them. So let me just grab them really, really quickly.
Sure.
So essentially, there we go. Those three there. One thing that and we have all these overlays, and depending on what you're doing,
There you
you
go.
may prefer to show these things live. Obviously, we're coming to you via Restream Studio, so it's going to be a little bit screwy if we do that in the same regard. But essentially, let's have a look at some of these options here. So these are the settings. You can go in there. You've got different categories for general, video, audio, virtual background, and shortcuts. So again, you want to think about your live stream quality. It's worth noting that if you want full HD quality, you have to be on a plan that's higher than the one that I've purchased. You've got all these options about showing participants' names, automatically sharing the screen, showing graphics and captions on top of video clips, which I've turned off because I didn't like that. You've got all kinds of different options there. But if we sort of click through, we have, in fact, we'll come back to the audio settings. Okay, let's talk about audio settings for a second, because I think this is something that is worth talking about, because
Hmm.
a lot of these programs, they really are based at beginners, and if you're happy with the defaults and the settings they come with, that's fine. But if you want a little bit more control, you need to think about these things rather carefully. So this is the audio settings for my portion of the stream. There are options for echo cancellation. This is predominantly this really exists in the event that either you're in a room with a lot of natural reverb, but even more than that, it's for people that refuse to wear headphones. And to be really honest with you, if somebody wanted to come on my show and not wear headphones, I would cancel that. Like, if you don't have a medical reason for not wearing headphones, you need to be wearing headphones, because I'm sure many of us have had that experience where if the thing that's happening in the speakers is captured by the microphone, that creates a really awful feedback loop, and
Yeah.
it'll fry your ears. It is so horrible. The noise suppression, it could be a useful one. Again, depending on your space, you can toggle that on and off. There are a couple of the three options underneath that are actually more advanced features, and I've turned on stereo audio input because I do have some music that comes in at the beginning of the show and the end of the show, and also high resolution audio because I want to capture the best quality that I can. There is an auto gain control here, so the gain is essentially the volume of your microphone. The problem I had with this, as someone who is honestly a bit of a control freak and an audio snob, is that I found it was actually increasing the volume of the places I didn't want it to, like the breaths between statements, and other really weird things. And I guess to be really honest with you, as a bit of an audio snob, this probably wouldn't be the first place that I would come if I was recording exclusively or predominantly for audio, but
Right.
it is really useful in terms of live streaming. I feel like we might have gone on a bit of a tangent there, but there are a few other things that I think we should sort of address in terms of the branding options. So some great things that Restream does let you do, and I'll let Sam get a word in edgewise in a moment. Talk to us about the captions and the chat options.
Sure. So I don't know why they call it captions. It should just be called lower thirds, really. Does it actually have multiple? Well, I guess because it also does a ticker, but
Yeah,
really it's
so
just lower thirds. That's the caption right down there. And we have a variety of them that we've already created at the beginning of the show. You can set them up way in advance. It remembers them from show to show. You can do them on the fly. So I could create a brand new one here, like, and throw that on. Where the hell did it go? Hey, well, okay. There it is. So, yeah, and it's got a main field where you could put a topic, and then a sub field where you could do something like a call to action or something of that nature. There's also the ability to do tickers, so that would be like a scroll of text. It's not dynamic. It's not going to pull that from like an RSS field or anything. So it is just whatever running text you put on screen prior to the show or during the show, I suppose. But all of these things are also controlled from that original design tab. There were three options for the theme, so it will affect what those captions then look like. Basically squared around it is essentially the choices you have.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess those are great things. In terms of the chat, like if you are live, you will have chat comments hopefully coming in, and
Mm-hmm.
you do have a couple of options. I can certainly click on one of these to feature it on the screen, like this one from CG.
Yeah.
There is also an option which is just a straight up chat overlay, which will put the whole chat on the screen. I don't think there's anything too incriminating. I don't usually
Yeah.
like using this one, but I think. And in fact, it might be better if Sam does that because I think all the chat comments are coming in on his channels. But I don't know if that'll do it for you, Sam. If you
I
select
don't
that
think there's
toggle.
a
Yep.
difference. I think it just when it does this, it only takes
Okay. So
new.
the new ones. Yep.
Yeah, it's only the new comments. So
All right. I
um,
must admit, I actually like the visual stacking of that. The
sure.
only thing that makes me nervous is that anybody watching you live can type just about anything in here, and it'll be burnt onto your video forever. And that's it's I hate to say this, but we live in a world where people say offensive things online.
On purpose.
So I do kind of
Not because they're dumb. Yeah.
yeah. So I do kind of recommend that you be a little bit careful about that. I
Mhm.
guess also let's just have a look at some of these other options here, and I think it'll be one of these. I'm not
So
really
I
sure which
would
one.
point out that the chat messages does show the the platform and the user avatar, which is, nice. So people, if they are multi-streaming and you have viewers on, say, YouTube, they can be like, oh, that's someone over on Twitch. I get it. We're in two different places, which can be a weird bridge to gap sometime. Gap to bridge? I don't know. It can be a little weird for people who aren't used to multi-streaming just yet as a viewer, because they'll be like, who is he talking to? He's not talking to me. I don't see any other chatters over here on Kick. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I guess another thing that probably is worth exploring a little bit, and this isn't exclusive to Restream, but they were kind of one of the earlier adopters of this technology. So they have sort of incorporated some live shopping options. So with QR codes and links and different things. So like if I click on an option here, you can see that I've got a little QR code at the top of the screen, which will take you to johnlacey.com. We do also have an option to have a product or, whatever. In this case, it's literally just going to my YouTube channel. But again, I actually really like the way that stacks vertically is the word I'm looking for. I actually like that. I think that's cool. But you do have the option to have that in the classic format or the compact format, which is sort of at the bottom of the screen. So again, if you're talking about a product, a service, an offer that you've got, call to action, you can certainly feature that on the screen. If you've got a short URL, you can include that visually there as well. People might like to scan it. If they're watching on their TV or their computer, they might want to scan that and actually bring it into on their phone. And it does have some fun little animations built in there as well. So that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, and on the back end, there is a version of that connects directly to, it gives you a little prompt for searching Amazon or is it Shopify? Shopify, and just dropping in links. So you can actually just do that inside of Restream, be like, oh, here's the thing I was talking about. Boom. You can
you do need to actually just be, if that is a feature that you're looking for, I should say I'm pretty much on the most basic paid feature plan. And I don't have that particular option. So if that is something you want to look at, you probably need to just do a little bit of research and have a look at those. But this is the video and live streaming show. Today we're talking all about using Restream and Restream Studio for podcasting. And speaking of that, we'll be back in just a second.
Constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. So when Johan would get on my counter before, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. Well, he loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that, of course, is a bit of an ad for Sam's podcast, Just Kidding Around. But it's also sort of a demonstration of how you can bring in your, pre-edited videos into Restream and just literally upload them, hit a button, and play them during your stream. And I think it's really worthwhile having some strategically placed moments within your stream just so you can take a breath.
Go get some coffee, do the other thing.
Absolutely. So, it's worthwhile having those things built in as well. But today we're talking all about using Restream and Restream Studio for podcasters and video shows and live streamers. We've sort of spoken about some of the branding options we have in Restream Studio itself. I guess, obviously, if you're coming via a different tool, so if you're coming via OBS Studio, you can literally do whatever you like in terms of actually, how you present your show. But certainly, it's a bit of a trade-off. It's very easy to set up in Restream Studio, but you do have to sort of embrace their defaults a little bit, which, to be honest, is fine. And again, I think especially for beginners, Restream, StreamYard, they're both great options, and they probably are the place I would recommend most people actually start. But I guess, Sam, if we think in terms of actually, working with either our recordings, if we've had a conversation offline, or maybe we just want to repurpose something that has been previously live. I guess before we get into some of the Restream specific stuff, what are your general thoughts on repurposing and remixing content?
I mean, repurpose and remix everything. No, yeah, I think, when we talk about specifically doing podcasts, I think you're already, as a host, as a producer, kind of approaching this with a topic in mind. So pre-show, creating specific topical points that you can, then edit down into their own chunks, like, is really a smart move, to just make that kind of thing easier. You can even do some visual cues on screen, so that'll make the editing process faster. Be like, oh, see, this is when I'm in my hosting mode talking to my guest, it's side by side like this. But when we go to like the lightning round, I am then in like a picture in a picture kind of mode with the guest, and they're in the hot seat. So you can be like, that's a chunk I'm going to put separately and do stuff like, So I think take into consideration some aesthetical things to make editing and remixing easier. But I don't think that was the question John was really asking. But yeah, remix everything, repurpose everything as much as you can.
And I guess, like, in a video context, we have long form video, but we also have horizontal video.
Yes.
And a lot of the time, the place that we might want to reuse some of this content is in a vertical short form platform. So, one thing I don't think we mentioned earlier was that in Restream Studio, you do actually have an option to actually have your whole video as sort of a vertical video, which we won't demonstrate now because it'll ruin everything. But it especially, I guess, if you do have access to TikTok streaming, if you do have access to Instagram streaming, you can potentially do that within this platform. But even if you don't, it's, if you're just recording for repurposing purposes later on, you can do it in that format. But I guess the other thing too, and I do have a graphic of this one, so let me just grab this really quick.
All right, while you're doing that, I want to say that if you are considering streaming to Instagram or TikTok or some vertical platform, Restream is not really intuitively set up to do both horizontal and vertical, even though it actually can do it. The aesthetic, if we were to take this as two people and try and push it over to Instagram, would basically show this middle line in between the two cameras real good. It'll be perfectly centered. So you're not going to get a good visual for your vertical. They have a whole separate sort of layout that will work just for vertical.
Sure. Okay, cool. I must admit, I've probably been a little bit too ambitious with my screenshots this morning because there are so many of them. They all look the same to me, even at a larger size. I'm going to go even larger again because I'm sure I actually did do something with this. So extra large icons. Essentially, okay, so here we go. That one.
This is another reason you want to use OBS most of the time, is because you could be looking at these things full screen without futzing around with them.
You certainly could. Okay, so here we go. Essentially, this is actually the home view of Restream. There is a little pop-up menu. If you click on sort of the blue section on the left-hand side, I think generally speaking, by default, you only see the icon. So if you click in just a blank space in that blue section, it'll show you what these things actually represent. There is one called video storage. So this is where your recordings will go. And again, depending a little bit on the type of plan that you have, it'll keep them for a period of time and then it will delete them. So if I click on that one, here you'll see that there are a couple of recordings here. One of them was last week's show. One of them was the week before. And a third one is just me playing with my my keyboard.
That is not on screen. I think you want this. There you go. So that's what that would look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, cool. And anyway, basically, if you click on the three dots and go down to download, you'll actually have a whole bunch of options to bring those up on the screen. So we have the ability to download the full video. We've got the full audio, so that's just everything combined. You do also have the option to split the audio tracks and split video tracks. It is important to keep in mind that this split video tracks option is in beta. And you will be downloading MKV files. So you will need to sort of, depending on your software, you'll probably need to convert them to something else.
Yeah, what did you find that worked?
Handbrake actually works.
Okay.
So again, MKV, and I don't really know the whole history of this format, but it is a format that we certainly use with OBS Studio to record within OBS. And the nice thing about it seems to be that if your computer crashes halfway through your recording, you won't lose the entire recording. You might if you're going straight to MP4, which is another video format. So, you know, I have found that the free Handbrake converter does actually convert these files. It does seem to be early days, and I get the feeling that a number of other platforms are a little bit better placed at this sort of isolated recording thing. Including StreamYard, who we alluded to a little bit earlier on, but it you know, it is certainly coming, and I'm sure they'll improve it over time. One thing I think from this screen, which I'm going to click on, and hopefully it'll appear on the screen. There we go. Okay, so when you go to download your recording, you'll see there is actually an edit and Descript option. So if you're also paying for Descript, you can sort of edit your video straight in there. I believe that's probably pretty cool. Is the full recording, so you don't necessarily need be able to move things around in that way. I'm not a huge fan of Descript. I know lots of people do love it, and if you do, more power to you, but I just found it doesn't work the way my brain works, so that was something I struggled with a little bit. But
yeah, I kept wanting it to do things, like I kept trying, and it's not my thing.
And to be honest, in the early days of me using it, like all I wanted to do was take the ums and ahs out of the transcription and leave them in the audio, but I couldn't do both. Like I had to leave them everywhere, or I had to take them out. And that at that point, you have to be a little bit careful that, you know, it doesn't sound too robotic, because suddenly half your video and your audio is missing. So that's certainly another thing to keep in mind. Yeah, so I guess once you've got those materials, though, there are a lot of different possibilities, and we've spoken about, you know, having a content library and you know, remixing, repurposing, taking those clips. And I guess that's the big thing. Like, even a show like this one, we talk for an hour. A lot of people don't have an hour to spend with us, but they might have 59 seconds. And you know, anything under a minute is generally what the shorter vertical platforms seem to like. So again, it's not to say that, you know, that will necessarily be a runaway success, but I think it is something to maybe at least think about and consider. Okay, so this is the video and live streaming show. We're talking all about Restream and Restream Studio, particularly with a focus for podcasters and live streamers. And we'll continue that conversation in just a moment.
Looked at the first assessment, and the first assessment was record a 5-minute video, and it was a pretty simple introduction of yourself. There was nothing exciting. I didn't have to research. It was just a 5-minute warm-up, and I freaked out. That course is still sitting in the cupboard beside me. I see that stack of papers and I almost rock in the corner. It cost me a lot of money to sign up, and I threw the whole course away.
And that, of course, is a bit of a shameless plug for my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle. So you can sort of check that one out at johnlacey.com, or, you know, just search for it wherever you listen to podcasts. So, yep. Okay, cool. All right. So this is the video and live streaming show. We've been talking about Restream and Restream Studio for podcasters and live video live streamers. So, you know, I hope this has been helpful. If you have specific questions, let us know in the chat. We'd love to answer those for you. But I guess as we start to wrap up, Sam, obviously you've had that very exciting development with Cute Avalanche.
Yeah.
So if people want to hear more about that or even check out the Just Kitten Around podcast, they can certainly head over to cuteavalanche.com.
For sure. Yeah, you can find all this stuff there.
Yeah.
And you can find me talking about it over on threads.net/@samproof until I get bored with it. But for now, that's what I'm using most of the time. Or just find any of my links at samproof.tv.
Sure. I must admit, like, I'm not really sold on Threads just yet, but we'll see how things develop.
We'll see. We'll see.
And I guess the other place they can go
Yeah.
if they want to learn more about you is samproof.tv.
Yeah, and as soon as I can figure out how to get Divi to show my Threads logo and URL, it's going to be added to all of the links that are over there. But you can find all of my links to various places for social media and live streaming and video at samproof.tv.
Nice. And if you want to catch up with anything I'm doing, you can head over to johnlacey.com. I'm actually going to be on a live stream later tonight, which I'll if you head over to my YouTube channel, which I never remember to mention, but it is actually at Learn Live Streaming. So if you head over to youtube.com/Learn Live Streaming, plenty of resources there, and check out those community posts. I'll include some information about that session, which is happening later today. But yeah, if you do want to catch up with anything, especially I've got a lot of OBS tutorials over at johnlacey.com. So if that is something that you're interested in checking out, please head over there and join us for that one. So Sam, I guess, do we have any sort of final thoughts on, how somebody might consider if Restream is the way for somebody to go?
Yeah, I mean, if you're new to live streaming and you're also like wearing as many hats as a lot of us do, where you're the talent on screen, you're the producer, the director, and all of that sort of thing, it really does make it a lot easier than jumping into something as complex as maybe OBS, just to get your bearings and just to get ready. So the learning curve on Restream, I think, is a lot simpler and will get you going faster.
And I guess one other thing that we probably didn't mention was that there is a free plan. So, before you really commit to it, go and try the free plan. It's free forever. You can have 2 channels. It will have some Restream
Watermark
branding on the Restream Studio. But again, I think for most people, if you are a complete beginner, it's really important that you figure out if this is something you want to commit to on an ongoing basis before you spend too much money sort of getting invested. So those are a couple of things that you might like to consider. You can certainly head over to restream.io if you want to learn more about that. And wherever you're watching this, please like and subscribe. We always appreciate that. And if you've got any topics that you'd like us to cover on future shows, please let us know in the comments wherever you do happen to be watching this, and we'll certainly check those out and maybe feature them on a future show.
For sure. And just remember, if you are going to take a podcast and live stream it, live streaming is a different experience than, having a conversation with one person and then putting that video up later. There is, that live element. So engage with the chat and engage with the audience and make sure they know when you'll be answering questions and things. If you want to have sort of big chunks of like, I'm talking to the guest for 30 minutes, then I'll take Q&A. Just make sure that's obvious.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think it's important to set some expectations about that up front, because I must admit, if I'm in a situation, and I'm sure I've mentioned this on the last 3 or 4 shows, but if I'm in a place where I get the sense that either the stream is pre-recorded or they're not just going to interact with the audience, that's usually the point at which I go, oh, this will be in the podcast feed. I will just listen when I go on a walk next time.
Right.
So, think a little bit philosophically about, the benefits of different content types. I know it can be so tempting sometimes to want to just repurpose the same thing everywhere. And that can be very efficient, but I think sometimes it's worthwhile considering the the different experiences different people might enjoy on different platforms.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for everybody that joined us live today. We really appreciate you swinging by the comments. If you're watching this later on, the recording, just throw a comment in there to let us know. We'd love to hear from you as well. But have a great weekend and a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.